The silver gleam caught the morning light. March 1944 in Berlin. Dawn was breaking at exactly 15 minutes past 7. A German test pilot sat in an unfamiliar cockpit. His hands rested on controls he had never touched before. These were enemy controls, American controls. This was not his usual aircraft, not the Messerschmitt he knew by heart, not even the revolutionary Me-262 jet he had mastered. This was a North American P-51 Mustang, the very machine that was destroying his Air Force. His mission seemed simple enough: fly the aircraft, test its capabilities, evaluate what made it so deadly against German pilots. But the choice weighing on his mind was far more complicated. Loyalty to his homeland pulled one direction. Professional honesty as an aviator pulled another. This internal battle would define everything that followed. For decades, this story remained hidden, whispered only in quiet corners of aviation history. The legend of a pilot caught between two worlds, a man known as Hans Werner Lurcher. Understanding his dilemma requires knowing the sky he fought in. The early war years belonged to Germany. Luftwaffe fighters ruled the air with absolute authority. Messerschmitt Bf-109s dominated every engagement. Focke-Wulf 190s swept through enemy formations. German pilots were the finest trained in the world. Their air superiority seemed unbreakable. Then came the American bombers. The 8th Air Force arrived with bold confidence. Their Boeing B-17 flying fortresses bristled with machine guns. Military planners called them self-defending aerial platforms. The strategy appeared brilliant on paper. Fly in tight combat box formations. Create overlapping fields of defensive fire. Build an impenetrable barrier against enemy fighters. Early missions near the coast seemed to prove the concept. The flying fortresses held their own against German attacks. But deeper targets revealed a fatal flaw. American escort fighters ran out of fuel. The P-47 Thunderbolt could guard bombers over the English Channel. The P-38 Lightning provided protection for limited distances. Neither could reach deep into German territory. Eventually, the escorts had to turn back. Bomber crews had a name for this moment: the departure of the Little Friends. Beyond that point, they flew alone, straight into the heart of enemy territory. German fighters waited just beyond escort range. The moment American escorts disappeared from view, Luftwaffe wings attacked. They came in waves from multiple directions, head-on attacks with cannons blazing, high-speed dives from incredible altitudes. Some German fighters even used air-to-air rockets, fired from beyond the range of bomber defensive guns. The results were catastrophic for American forces. Summer and fall of 1943 brought devastating losses. The raid on Schweinfurt ball-bearing plants became legendary for all the wrong reasons. October 14th earned the nickname Black Thursday. 291 B-17s took off that morning. 60 never returned home. Over 600 American airmen died in a single day. Loss rates reached 26%. Allied commanders faced harsh reality. The daylight bombing campaign was failing. Personnel and aircraft losses were unsustainable. Deep penetration raids had to be suspended temporarily. The Luftwaffe still controlled German skies. They had shattered the myth of the invulnerable flying fortress. American bombers were vulnerable targets without proper escort protection. A new solution was desperately needed. That solution was already taking shape across the Atlantic. Back in 1940, Britain desperately needed fighters. They approached North American aviation with a request. "Build us some P-40 Warhawks," they asked. But Nadier's chief designer had a different idea. Dutch Kindleberger made an audacious promise. Instead of building someone else's aging design, he would create something entirely new, a superior fighter in record time. The British agreed to the proposal. 102 days later, the prototype emerged. This was the birth of the Mustang. Initial versions showed tremendous promise. Fast and agile at lower altitudes, responsive controls that pilots loved. But one critical flaw limited its potential. The American Allison engine was reliable but inadequate. Its single-stage supercharger lost power dramatically above 15,000 feet, right where the most important air battles occurred. The plane became sluggish at high altitude. It was good but not revolutionary, not yet the legend it would become. The transformation required Anglo-American cooperation. A Rolls-Royce test pilot flew an early Mustang and recognized its potential. The airframe was excellent, he reported, but the engine was holding everything back. His suggestion changed aviation history forever. Why not combine this superb American airframe with Britain's finest engine? The Rolls-Royce Merlin powered the legendary Spitfire. Its two-stage supercharger maintained peak performance at high altitudes. The marriage of American airframe and British engine was revolutionary. Suddenly, the Mustang became a completely different aircraft. Top speeds exceeded 400 miles per hour at altitude. The United States possessed arguably the world's finest fighter. Packard Motor Company began producing Merlins in America. New P-51B and C models arrived in Europe during late 1943. They carried another crucial advantage: massive internal fuel capacity plus external drop tanks. With full fuel load, P-51s could fly from England to Berlin, engage in air combat over the target, return safely to base. The escort problem was solved completely. Luftwaffe pilots encountered these new fighters with complete shock. They had grown accustomed to predictable patterns: wait for American escorts to depart, attack the undefended bombers. Now everything changed overnight. German fighters climbed to intercept bomber formations deep inside Germany. Instead of defenseless targets, they found swarms of deadly escorts. P-51s could outclimb German fighters at high altitude, outrun them in level flight, outdive them when necessary. 650 caliber machine guns delivered devastating firepower. American industrial capacity meant unlimited numbers. The balance of air power shifted dramatically, first slowly, then with overwhelming momentum. By early 1944, the outcome was inevitable. Bomber losses dropped to acceptable levels. Luftwaffe experienced crushing pilot losses daily. The psychological impact was equally devastating. Seeing American fighters operate freely over Germany signaled the loss of air superiority. The final acknowledgement came from the highest levels. Hermann Göring commanded the entire Luftwaffe. When he saw silver P-51s over Berlin, reality hit hard. He told a colleague the truth. "When I saw Mustangs over Berlin, I knew the game was over." This documented history now intersects with wartime legend. The decline of the Luftwaffe created space for remarkable stories. The account of Hans Werner Lurcher emerged from this chaos. Official records cannot confirm every detail of his story. His name appears in no German or Allied archives. He might have been one individual pilot, or his story might represent the experiences of many, but the narrative itself remains compelling across decades. As the legend tells it, Lurcher was no ordinary pilot. He was Germany's most respected test pilot, a professional who valued airborne truth above everything else. By late 1944, the war was devastating him personally. Undertrained pilots were being sent against impossible odds. German leadership demanded miracles while ignoring brutal facts. Wave after wave of P-51s destroyed everything they encountered. The story continues with a fateful decision. December 14, 1944 brought a supposed engine failure during a test flight. But the narrative insists this was no accident. Lurcher had deliberately sabotaged his own aircraft. He could no longer participate in a war he knew was strategically lost. He nursed his crippled plane across enemy lines. A successful forced landing in American territory followed. Initially, he was simply another prisoner of war. But interrogations revealed his vast knowledge of German aviation. Lieutenant Colonel Harold Watson commanded American Air Technical Intelligence. He was also an experienced test pilot himself. In Lurcher, Watson saw unprecedented opportunity. direct access to enemy expertise from their finest pilot. Watson proposed something completely revolutionary, an idea that supposedly sparked 3 weeks of Pentagon debate. Allow the German prisoner to fly American aircraft. The concept presented enormous risks. No enemy prisoner had ever been placed in Allied cockpits during active combat. What if he attempted escape? What if he was really an intelligence operative? But potential rewards were equally enormous. Americans possessed data, but lacked enemy perspective. How did the P-51 feel to German pilots? What vulnerabilities did they perceive? Which performance aspects impressed them most? The story suggests approval finally came with strict conditions. Lurcher's participation had to be completely voluntary. He would fly no combat missions under any circumstances. For Lurcher, this created profound ethical conflict. Participation felt like betrayal of his countrymen. German pilots were still dying daily in unequal combat, but it also represented the ultimate professional challenge, a chance to understand why this aircraft had defeated his comrades. His integrity as a test pilot demanded honest evaluation. He accepted the American proposal despite personal reservations. Walking up to the P-51 must have been emotionally overwhelming. This aircraft symbolized everything the Luftwaffe had lost. Climbing into the cockpit revealed immediate differences. German cockpits were purely functional but cramped spaces. The Mustang cockpit was ergonomically designed perfection. The bubble canopy provided nearly 360-degree visibility, a tremendous advantage over the heavily framed Bf-109 canopy. The Merlin engine roared to life with distinctive sound. Until now, that sound had only meant incoming danger. Pushing the throttle forward released tremendous power. The Mustang accelerated with authority and confidence. As he lifted off, systematic evaluation began immediately. High-altitude testing revealed where battles were won and lost. This was where the Merlin-powered P-51 truly dominated everything, climbing with energy that astonished even experienced pilots. Mental comparisons to German aircraft were inevitable. A Bf-109 might outturn a Mustang in low-altitude dogfights, but the P-51 was designed for energy fighting. Losing pilots could simply break away from turning battles, climb at rates German fighters could never match, dive back down from positions of complete advantage. His report was brutally honest according to the legend. He praised American engineering excellence and manufacturing quality. By late 1944, German planes used substitute materials. Production occurred under extreme pressure with declining standards. American aircraft were perfectly assembled machines. Superior design combined with superior construction created unbeatable combinations. American pilots were endurance runners in warfare. German pilots had been trained only as sprinters. The P-51 had changed the entire strategic tempo permanently. This is where the narrative presents its greatest moral challenge. American handlers requested more than technical reports. They wanted psychological warfare assistance. Draft a document detailing P-51 superiority, sign it personally, have thousands dropped over Luftwaffe airfields. The objective was destroying German pilot morale completely. This was fundamentally different from technical evaluation. Flying the plane was professional exercise. This was active psychological warfare against his own people. The story describes intense internal conflict. He had rejected the Nazi regime, but he had not abandoned German pilots, men he had flown with personally. Signing that document meant telling them their courage was meaningless. Their sacrifice was completely futile. But American requests contained undeniable truth. The P-51 was genuinely superior to German fighters. The war was strategically lost beyond any doubt. Continued fighting would only increase casualties unnecessarily. Perhaps signing could help minimize overall suffering. Contributing to faster war conclusion might save lives on both sides. The story suggests Hans Lurcher reached his decision. He agreed to write the requested report, but only on his own professional terms. He refused to create simple propaganda materials. Instead, he composed cold, technical assessment. Just like his other professional evaluations, he laid out objective facts without emotional manipulation. The P-51's superior climb rate at all altitudes, the tactical advantage of bubble canopy visibility, the strategic impossibility of German victory. He did not write surrender immediately. He wrote in dispassionate engineering language, explaining why no reasonable hope for success remained. He signed the document knowing consequences. This would sever his final connection to his former life. Professional integrity trumped national loyalty in his mind. Germany's surrender in May 1945 left Lurcher homeless. Returning to Germany would brand him a traitor. But his expertise remained valuable to America. The Cold War was beginning immediately. His story mirrors the real Operation Paperclip program. This classified operation brought German scientists to America. The final chapter grants him redemption. He received civilian contracts to continue test pilot work, helping shape the next generation of American aircraft development. His relationship with Harold Watson endured for decades, a symbol of how professional respect transcends wartime divisions. The story concludes with return to Germany. In 1950, he helped rebuild West German civilian aviation. His story remained classified for security reasons, but perhaps also because it challenged simple war narratives. He was not a simple traitor according to this account. He was a professional facing impossible choices, choosing higher allegiance to truth and human consideration. The P-51 Mustang's history speaks to innovation and industrial might. It was the aircraft that broke Luftwaffe dominance forever. Its legacy rests in documented facts. Woven into that history is the quieter tale of Lurcher. Whether one individual truly existed or his story represents many experiences, it resonates powerfully. It speaks to complex intersections of patriotism and professionalism, the moral integrity required when duties conflict completely. His alleged journey compels us beyond simple labels. Hero and traitor become inadequate descriptions. Genuine integrity sometimes requires choices that appear like ultimate abandonment. The story reminds us that profound decisions are rarely clear-cut, not between obvious right and wrong, but between conflicting professional and human obligations. The German pilot in the Mustang's cockpit represents universal dilemmas. This exploration reveals how the most important choices transcend national boundaries. They speak to fundamental questions of conscience and professional responsibility. The legend endures because it captures something essentially human: the struggle to maintain integrity when the world demands compromise. Whether Hans Werner Lurcher truly existed matters less than what his story represents. It embodies the eternal conflict between loyalty and truth, between patriotism and professional honesty, between national duty and human conscience. The P-51 Mustang changed aviation history through superior engineering and manufacturing. But stories like Lurcher's remind us that human choices matter equally. Technical superiority wins battles, but individual moral courage shapes how we remember those victories. The silver gleam of Mustangs over Berlin ended German air superiority. The quiet legend of one pilot's choice reminds us that integrity transcends national boundaries. Truth matters more than flags when lives hang in the balance.